Welcome to the Rebound Rundown. I'm your host, Paul Frischner. This is your daily digest college basketball show that covers everything you need to know about your favorite team. From game previews to recap to press conferences and breakdowns, we have you covered. Every Monday through Friday with your morning commute, wherever you get your podcasts, and make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Welcome back into the Rebound Rundown. Great to be joined today by Amy Mallon, the head coach of Drexel women's basketball. So we have Drexel men's basketball, now women's basketball, covered a Drexel special this week on the Rebound Rundown, continuing our off-season coverage around the sport of college basketball. Make sure if you haven't already, you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you subscribe wherever you're listening in audio form. Plenty more as we lead up to the first week in November and opening night, where the Rebound Rundown will start to go daily. But for right now, here in the off-season, this is a weekly show, just kind of catching up on around the sport. And like I said, it's Amy Mallon. Amy, thanks for taking a few minutes to sit down today to talk about your program, your history around the CAA, and some of the exciting things that are coming to Drexel women's basketball this year.
Thanks for having me. Anytime I can talk about Drexel and our program and talk about basketball, I love it. So thanks for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a great place to start, because this is where Coach Spiker started, were some of the pillars of the program. And you and I were just talking before we went live about some of the things that your program is built on, right? The foundation, some of maybe the things that you recruit to, the values, what you like to promote when you're recruiting, all of those things. So for somebody that's listening to this that may not know much about Drexel women's basketball, or for somebody listening that is new and interested into the program, what does an Amy Mallon Drexel women's basketball program look like?
Yeah, I think for us, being consistent with the little things, and I think you hear that maybe from a lot of people when you're building, but just I think that's one thing in my time at Drexel, we've been able to stay consistent with those little things. And that to me is, everyone on the team, but it's a consistent product that we're putting out on the floor and what we're doing and how we do it on the floor, and then off the court, the same. Everyone enhances and has value on our team from 1 to whatever number that is that we have on the roster that year. So I think for us, staying true to that, and the people that want to be part of that, and bringing people in that want to do that, because we all know when you're building programs and trying to sustain success, you really need people that want to be part of it. So if for us, trying to find the right people, and that's from my staff, I feel like it's really important. One thing I learned early in this, it's the people you surround yourself with. I think that's your staff. And then I think it's obviously being supported by Drexel the way we are, and then having the right kind of student athletes representing you, and that want to be part of that. So for me, I try to stay pretty consistent. We call it our pyramid, a little bit like the John Wooden idea of certain things that really are pillars. I think the big thing is respecting the past, the people who have been here, and understanding they really kind of set the tone for what we're able to do now. And then, consistent with how you challenge your team. Those things are really important, but also understand that everyone has a purpose, in the program. So I would say power and purpose, we have both of those things with what we do. And then finally, just like we said, really kind of winning each day and getting better each day. But I think for me, I've been pretty lucky to be somewhere for as long as I have. And you don't see that as much anymore, in the landscape. But I think people are like, why have you been there so long? Even when I took over the job, they're like, why, what are you going to change? I'm like, why would I change anything? We've been pretty successful. I'm going to tweak. And that's part of a job as a coach. You change things here and there, and you have to evolve with the times. But I feel pretty good about that. But for me, staying consistent with the little things every day rather than just trying to go for the remarkable one-time thing.
And so to be at the program for 19 seasons before you take over as a head coach, and now to be there as the head coach since 2020, where you've been around this program for 2+ decades, you played in the CAA, you've been around Philadelphia for even longer than that. You are, the CAA and Philadelphia and Drexel through and through. How special is it for you? Just mentioned it a little bit, but how special for you is it to be able to lead this program?
It's it's an honor. I always say that one of the things when I got into coaching, I feel like it's the next best thing to playing. I was very passionate, about the game, loved it, was able to grow and get better. And that's one of my goals as a coach, to, guide student athletes into being the best they can be on and off the court. And to be able to do that and to do it for as long as I have, because everyone's like, it's not for everybody, sometimes coaching at this level, because there's a lot of pieces. It's like anything in life. There's some things that are going to be really hard that you're not going to like about it, that you have to figure out. But the other side of it, that one kid or that one player that just does that one thing in that moment just makes you want to continue doing it. So for me, I love it. I've been here so long. You just said it. Now I'm going to weddings. My former players are having babies, so I feel a little old in that sense. But it's also why I do what I do. I'm being invited to weddings. I'm hearing news of additions to families. So I always say to myself, hey, I'm lucky that these former players want me to be part of that still. And that's kind of like our program. We talk about family, but I really think you spend enough time someplace. And that's what's so special about me being in Philadelphia, being part of Drexel, and obviously in the Philadelphia community for so long. It's home for me. It's home in so many ways, not only for my family, but also for my extended basketball family.
Oh, look, having kids, you're just laying the groundwork, establishing a recruiting pipeline, right? I mean, it's just
exactly. I mean, we have Grace O'Neal on our team. She was 8 years old when I coached her cousin, Meg Creighton, who was the starting point guard on our 2013 W19, national championship team. So at the moment, not realizing she's in their locker room dancing with all the other 8-year-olds, that how many years later I'm going to be coaching her as a starting point guard in my team that won, the 2024 championship. So pretty cool when you see that all, full circle. And when we had a ring ceremony, Meg, her cousin, was able to present her with her ring. We had alums come back and do that. So that's a cool part about being somewhere where you've been there. It's nice to be able to bring people back, and they do come back, which I love about Drexel.
So looking at last season, the way the last season ended and approaching this offseason, what were some of the things that you looked at as March wound down and you looked into the offseason that you wanted to address?
I think for us, we do. For one of the things about having consistent success, especially in the CAA, which we've had, like where we finish, we do have a target on our back, every season, because we're one of the few teams that have been there consistently. So in last year was no different. Obviously we're never satisfied with a finish that's not a championship or not like in the championship game. But at the same time, that is, like you said, a learning tool. So, taking last year's team and looking at, we had 6 newcomers last year. So that was a lot of different pieces for us that we had to figure out. And for us, we weren't quite playing the way we needed to play to be, as successful in the end. So you look at that and you look at what you have returning, and the big thing we develop. And so when we have someone in the program, like an Amaris Baker, who's now in her 3rd year, a Grace O'Neal, who's in her 4th year, I have no doubt that the growth we're going to see is going to happen, because our players, when you look from day one to when they finish and they stay in the program, they get better every year. And so for me, I know they're going to work. I know they're going to get better. I know we're going to develop them. And where that leads us is back to consistency. So there's lots of things that we know we need to be better at. For us, I feel like the one thing from last year to this year's team with every return, I thought we were very predictable when we lost. We were not that when we won we weren't, but like I thought the things we did when we were losing were predictable. Like we did the same thing. So for me, finding a way to make sure that those things change. We're not as predictable in those moments when things didn't go our way or wasn't the way we needed to. And I think a lot of that does come with experience and growth and experiencing. Last year, now having everybody back to, hey, we're not going to do that again, but we're going to do this. And if that doesn't work, we're going to figure out how we're going to get to the next piece. But I said that to my seniors. I'm like, I thought we were very predictable, and it could have been a little like a percent different, but that 1% takes you away from where we needed to be. So we gotta be not as predictable with certain things.
You mentioned Amaris Baker getting her back, and also the other returnees on this team, right? To have 9 returnees, to have only 3 newcomers on this team, but also, Coach, to just be one of a handful of programs that doesn't have a transfer, I think really sticks out, because you look at the landscape of college basketball right now, and you talk to fans who say you're doing it the old way versus doing it the new way, right? And you're doing it the old way with retention and development versus going out and building a team out of the portal or whatever that might be. And that's the hot button issue right now all across college athletics. How have you approached that, and how proud are you of the retention that you've been able to have in Drexel's program?
I'm so proud of that. You don't, coaching for as long as I have, and you kind of said it, it's like you don't even want to think about that, because you feel like that should just be the norm, that people go someplace, they make the decision to be there because it's where they want to be, and it's the place they see themselves continuing to grow, and I feel like, obviously I try not to think about who I'm going to lose or what's going to happen every year. Cause I think if you do that, you're constantly, you're going to be on like eggshells, but at the same time, you do have to think this could happen. So if this does, how are we going to respond to it? So, we've had moments, we had a couple of years ago, my two all rookie kids ended up moving, and they moved to a bigger, they transferred to a Big Ten school. And that was a hard hit for me, because those were like, for me in a Drexel program, we've been able to grow these type of players from all rookie to player of the year, so a lot of programs have had that same issue. But I said, if I just get caught up in that's just the way it's going to be, I'm not going to be able to function or survive. So for me, I felt like the thing I was able to do is have a new approach. And hey, if we do have this type of situation, that we really have to get out in front of it and get the type of kids, if we do get a transfer, which we did, in Amaris Baker, we have to get the right type that are going to fit us, not just because we're filling spots. And so for us, I think we have a good balance of, we've had transfers come in, but not a whole roster full, so definitely that fit our needs and fit the situation and the culture. So for me, Amaris Baker is one of them. She was a local kid. She was out of state and she came back, and this was home for her. This was a dream school for her, being from South Philly. So it worked for us, and her just believing in what we do. So for me, just trying to sustain that, but to not have, for this year, to be in that situation, I'm going to take it. I'm going to make the most of it, and just hope that continues to be, but I'm going to keep being me. I said, I'm going to keep coaching my players, and I have that, relationship, pretty good relationships with my team. Like, I want them to want to be here, but I would say you have to get to know them if you want them to know what you know. So I feel like it's really important to, I want us to have a relationship past their time at Drexel and realize they got more out of it than just time on the court, and they have teammates and friends for life, and coaches who are going to continue to watch them grow and shine past Drexel.
How did you approach putting together the non-conference schedule for this season?
For us, we had a really, last year, I think we had the toughest one in the CAA. If you look back at our non-conference schedule last year, again, a tough year, like based on some games we had to play, but really, really tough, So for me, I do think that's part of how you grow going into conference and prepare for conference. So for us, I think we have a really well balanced schedule again. We have some, we're at Pitt, so we're on the road right away playing tough games. We have our Big Five opponents, which are, the Big Five for everybody. It's a competitive game. So it's always going to be a good game, a home and away. And then some of the non-conference, we have some, Lehigh, who was the Patriot League champion, last year. We have Maris, who's continuing to grow, who's always had a standard program. So for us, I feel like we have a really good balance of teams that we're playing home and away. And I really think it's going to prepare the team. And I just hope that we are prepared from non-conference to go into conference, because, this year, again, every game matters in conference. Every game's going to be a tough one. And we saw it last year. Everybody can beat everybody any night. So you better be, playing your best basketball when conference starts, as far as consistency.
You win the CAA, go to the NCAA tournament a couple of seasons ago, and to be able to do that for your program, to reach a pinnacle like that, to win the conference, and to achieve a goal like that, how do you? I'm trying to think of the best way to ask this. How do you try your best? And I'm trying to ask this without it sounding super obvious, because of course you want to win the conference every year, but to try and replicate success like that with an experienced group, what do you hope that players can learn from getting the NCAA tournament? And I know that one game in the NCAA tournament didn't go the way that the players would have hoped it would have went, but still, climbing the mountain, winning the conference, doing that, how big of an achievement is that for you and your program?
I think it's tremendous. I mean, you look at the landscape athletics, even now, it's even harder. It's one of those things where just you are getting, just with transfers and the ability to do that, and people leaving and not staying in the program. So you often saw mid-majors, by the time kids were seniors, they were beating teams and knocking off, powerhouse teams, because they had this group that played together. You're seeing less of that in the mid-majors, because a lot of the mid-major players are going to other schools. So now that those mid-major teams are starting over again. But to have the opportunity to play at a national level in the NCAA tournament, I said this, and I said it the first year when we won in 21. I said this to my players. I go, some people spend a lifetime in the sport and never make it to the NCAA tournament as a coach or a player, and that's a fact, So So to get a chance to go, and we've obviously been twice in the last 5 years, that's pretty impressive, especially for a mid-major program. And I feel like it comes back to the people and teams and people that want to play together and just have an opportunity to do that. Is it easy to do? No, so because it's one of those things where in your league, you really have to just, the way our league pans out, it's at the end, you have to be able to win those games to get there. And it hasn't always been like that. In my obviously time at Drexel, we've had multiple teams go NCAA, but that is no longer the case, with how things have evolved and changed. So it's a lot harder to do. So for us to even experience that, I said, for our teams to be in postseason at the time, either the NCAA tournament and the WNIT, 10 of the last 11 years, that's pretty impressive, just to have that experience, a postseason experience. And I always just go into, in my time, when I talk to alums when they leave and they talk about Drexel, and this is kind of back to your experience, the three things they always talk about, we usually do an international trip every year, every 4 years that we've been allowed to do. They talk about that being like a once in a lifetime thing. They talk about an opportunity to contend for a championship or win a championship. And they also talk about the teammates, their friends they made. So I feel like those three things, back to the pillars of our program, those are things we know. It's all about the student athlete experience. And a chance to go to the NCAA tournament is certainly something you're always trying to put yourself in position to do. But for us, back to the consistency piece, I feel like we're always contending. We're always right where we need to be. Are we always going to end up winning? But we're always in a position that we could win. And I think that's going to be like another story for this team this season. I think we have a great team back. I think we'll have an opportunity to contend and be there. But as we know, a lot of things have to happen and be right in those moments. And that's the fun of coaching. It's never fun to lose, but you definitely learn from those things, and then you tweak and you figure out what the next thing is.
Yeah. And heading into this season, we can get into some specifics here, and I'll let you take it as you want with the roster, or if you want to keep it more general, however you want to answer this question. What are some of the things, or who are some of the players that you're most excited to coach this season? For Drexel women's basketball fans listening, what is this team going to look like?
It's exciting to have as many returnees as we do. Obviously, Amaris Baker, she was the CA leading scorer last year. So I have no doubt she's going to come back even stronger. She has just gotten better every year for us in the program, from her first year being the most outstanding player in the CA tournament to last year being first team All CA and leading the league in scoring. So she's just going to continue to go at you. I love her because she is that TJ McConnell saying, it's a skill, working hard or playing hard is a skill. She's definitely one of those people that I think fall under that concept. And Grace O'Neill, who is in the backcourt with her, a different type of player, but has that same mentality. They both, for me to have two seniors who play as hard as they do and just are willing to are conditioned at a level they are, I feel like it's going to allow us to continue to do the things we need to do. And we often say controlled tempo, but it doesn't mean that tempo can't be fast. I think you just have to understand, if you're going to play fast, you have to be able to defend fast. And that depends on the team you're playing, so you're trying to figure those things out. But I love those two back for another year together, a third year together in the backcourt. I'm hoping that with those two kind of leading the way. We also have Deja Evans, who was on the all defensive team in the CA last year. She came to Drexel last year as a transfer from Albany. She was all conference there, all defensive as well. And you saw moments of her last year, double against Temple, just things she did that you're kind of like, all right, almost a triple double with blocks. Her potential is, to me, one of those things where I think you're going to see piece by piece her just continuing to grow. And I think she's the key. I would say she's the heartbeat to our program. She's a post player who's versatile, can score. She's fun to watch. I mean, she's already in our top 7 in all-time blocks in 1 year. So gives you an idea of what she brings us from a presence in the post. But what I love about her most after 1 year, her ability now to step outside, which she didn't do a ton last year, but I think you're going to see a little more of that from her, which is going to make her even more exciting and dynamic as a player. And then we have a few other returnees in Molly Lavin. She's another 6'2" post player who gives us a little bit of the outside versatility. She can shoot the 3, but she can also post. And And in that group, we have Lane McGurk, who came off the bench for us last year, but again, another local player who athletically just has the ability to really play fast for us on the floor offensively. And some of the newcomers, again, I feel like we have such a good group. It is one of those teams where I look at the bench and I'm like, I actually think I have, usually you feel like you have a 6 or 7. I really have a full squad of people that I think can really contribute to this team this year. So it's not a bad thing to think about, but it's also like, hey, how are we going to make sure we get people in where we need them to? But we have a set of sisters in the Watkins. We have a sophomore and freshman sisters on the team, which is pretty cool, from Rochester, who are great additions. One's a freshman and one was a freshman last year, who are just going to give us long, athletic type players that are versatile. So for me, be able to utilize that, I think we're going to be bigger than we've been all around. From a size, we have a lot of like 6 foot, right along that size guards. And I think for us, that's going to allow us to do things differently defensively. And then, which is fun, we have Molly Rulo, who is a freshman for us. She's a local player. She played at Cardinal O'Hara High School, but both her parents played here at Drexel. So she is an alum's daughter. She's a coach's daughter. So that alone should tell you that she's going to bring that toughness, but also just that IQ that I think we're really going to be able to use this year with her. So excited about having her on the squad as well.
How have you seen NIL develop and change within women's basketball over the last couple seasons?
It's amazing how fast it's developed. Like I was just talking to somebody 4 years ago, which is different, and that doesn't seem very long, but just within 4 years, in the last 2 years, it's fast. Everything has just quickly changed, with obviously NIL, with just them changing, the way you can technically pay players, and the way they talk about that. Again, that's the NCAA, the settlement, all those things that kind of fall under that. It's definitely impacting mid majors in the sense, I think players leaving, opportunities that they might have. I think from our end, as a mid major and trying to be in that, not having football, not being a power football, program, that I think for us, we have to just balance out what we're trying to do. Like for me, if there's an opportunity to do NIL and do educational awards, for me, the most important thing from my standpoint is that I'm retaining players I have. I'm not going out and finding players to do that for, So I think knowing that if you come here, and if I have an Amaris Baker, who is that's someone you're going to worry about. She's the lead scorer in the CA. So people are aware, hey, this is something this player did. Could she go somewhere else and have a different experience? Yes, but her staying here, there's a commitment we can make now to her with that area, saying, hey, we want you to stay here. And this is more about retainment and keeping you here. So for us, trying to evolve with that, but also stay true to who you are, has been really something we're trying to carefully do and figure out along with everybody else. And I think we're trying to do it the right way in the moment. But again, that could change again, within a year, because I think you're going to see these schools, all this money, for me, I said at some point, some of the money's going to run out. So what people saying, whatever money people are saying is out there. So like, where are you going to be when that happens, and what's going to happen and how you're going to handle it? And it's back to going someplace where people actually care about you and want to see you be your best when you leave, so
yeah.
And that's where, as long as I can stay in that and stay successful, and that's what's so great about the year we won the championship, because that was the year I did lose 2 kids to, a Big Ten school, probably more because of those things. And again, I don't know if those are all the reasoning for it, but the best thing about that year, we went on to win a championship with not one all-conference player. Everybody, it was just it was going to be a rebuilding year. I'm like, oh, we're going to figure out what we're going to do. And that team, and back to our culture, was, hey, my senior came in and said, hey, what are we going to do? I said, well, we're just going to follow the map to success we've had. It's just, we're on ways. We just got a detour. We got to go this way. And that team came together and won a championship. So I think there's a lot of those pieces that can actually allow teams to play at a higher level too. There is obviously a skill set, and there's things you do need to be successful, but a big piece of that can be things like that.
How encouraging has it been the last couple of seasons for you, Amy, to see the growth of women's basketball just as a sport?
So exciting. I mean, I feel like I've been part of that, obviously, from when I played and playing with the Philadelphia Rage, with Dawn Staley, and being part of that whole first, the pro team that was here. And now to be talking about that again. So when they announced we're going to have a team in Philadelphia, so many people, so many, whether it was the choir covering, and there were like, pictures from the Rage in there. And it's so funny because I never knew those pictures were going to come back out, and they're out, and we're talking about where it is now. And just, it's so exciting because I feel like it's like anything. There's been this consistent growth. And now to see it really just kind of like take that big leap into, hey, if we continue to do it the right way, and I think people are excited about the women's game, and you're seeing that more and more. And now even with Philly getting a team, it's like making sure when you introduce it to our fan base and what we're going to do in Philly, that we do it for our fan base, because every fan base is a little different, so but to see that happen and be part of that has been so exciting, and I'm probably one of on the other side, the old school, that's telling them how it used to be. Hey, this is what we used to do, like now we have this is pretty cool, but we've all been part of that growth, and part of that journey. So to see it happen, I think I thought you knew this was going to happen, but I feel like to see that happen a little faster than you thought too has been pretty cool.
I'll leave you with this, Amy. Is there anything else that maybe we haven't talked about today? Anything I haven't asked you that you would want Drexel fans to know going into this season?
I think, you're watching Drexel basketball. I tell you, this group and these teams, I think they're no different than the teams we had. I think they totally play like an underdog in games, and they're going to come out. They're going to play hard. They're going to play for each other. And, we take so much pride in those little things and doing those things for each other that, and we share the ball. So I think you're going to see people stand out, but also I think you're going to see that at a higher level. And we have an exciting schedule. We definitely want people out there for those Big 5 games. I think those are going to be exciting. We're playing Penn, our first home game on November 12th. So to come out and support these women, they're fun. They're great people. And on top of it, they excel in the classroom. I said 3.59 GPA. I can't ask for more in what they do and how they do it at a high level in every area. So just great role models, I think, for all around for everybody.
Amy Mallon, head coach of Drexel women's basketball, thank you so much for taking some time today to talk, and best of luck this season.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Go Dragons.